Hi everyone, and welcome to our video lesson. My name is Instructor Oliver, and today we will be discussing workers' compensation. So let's begin. Okay, so what is workers' comp insurance? Workers' compensation is a form of liability insurance required under state law. It pays medical costs and replaces wages when employees are injured at work. Workers' compensation insurance coverage is the exclusive remedy, okay, and we'll get into that. Workers' compensation insurance is a coverage designed to protect both business owners and their employees from potential financial disaster. The average cost of a claim for workers' comp is usually over $40,000. Many families and employers would be unable to cover these costs without this insurance. When an employee gets injured on the job, workers' compensation insurance provides what is known legally as an exclusive remedy. A business that has coverage under an active policy will not be held liable for job-related injuries except under narrow legal circumstances, whereas the employer intended to cause injury to the employee or they were willfully negligent. Okay, so workers' compensation insurance is a property and casualty insurance product legally required for most business owners when they hire one or more employees. A policy will protect the business from lawsuits related to employees who become injured or ill on the job. It'll also pay for medical care and replace a portion of missing payroll wages when employees are unable to work due to an accident. Each state has their own laws and requirements that guide the legal system and define how coverage works. Okay, so state insurance regulators establish the rules and determine how much and how long insurance companies must pay for claims related to workplace injuries. What is the purpose of workers' compensation? Legally requiring workers' compensation coverage brings advantages to both employers and employees. The basis of the work comp legal system is built around the Prussian concept of no-fault insurance. This concept generally means that on-the-job injuries are an accepted fact and a part of doing business. The purpose of our workers' compensation system is to help manage the financial consequences of accidents in the most efficient and judicious manner possible. The concept of no fault was later applied to auto insurance as a means of limiting litigation for car accidents. The primary benefit for business owners participating in a state's workmen's compensation program is that they have tort exemption or legal protection from injuries that are covered under a workers' comp policy. The insurance company will pay for the cost of medical care and it will replace lost wages for employees injured on the job. Employees benefits when a business has coverage because they do not have to prove that an employer was negligent. Employees receive financial compensation for injuries that occur through their own carelessness or occupational exposure without the burden or expense of filing a lawsuit against their employer. Under the current workers' compensation system, employees receive compensation more quickly and more often than employees without access to workers' comp coverage. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the cost. So who pays for workers' compensation? Usually, the business owner or employer pays the cost of providing coverage for employees. The cost of a policy is based on payroll and the class code the job duties fall under. A policy lasts for up to 1 year. State insurance regulations dictate each state's own workers' comp requirements. Most state laws require coverage as soon as the business hires its first employee. There are a lot of additional rules associated with when and how owners and employees must be covered in each state. They can purchase it through private insurance companies or through state insurance funds. Most states also have additional injury funds established to pay for injuries of uninsured employees under certain circumstances. Does workers' comp coverage vary from state to state? Yes, workers' compensation laws and coverage requirements vary significantly from state to state. Since each state administers their own workers' compensation systems, there might be important differences on how each state interprets their own laws and statutes with regard to both coverage requirements and insurance benefits for injured workers. The federal government also has its own system for federal employees and utilizes its own rules and requirements for federal employees. The primary difference between each state's workers' compensation rules include: 1, the number of employees a business can have before coverage is required, and number 2, the number of employees a business can have before coverage is required will range from the very first employee hired up to 5 employees. In some states, construction companies can be required even when they don't have employees. Okay, so the other thing to keep in mind is that this insurance can basically vary from, as we discussed, from state to state, and that depending on the job classification that an employee has and how many employees plus their wages would kind of determine how their coverage would work. What states require workers' compensation? Every state in the United States requires workers' compensation with the exception of Texas. Requirements are based on the number of employees and vary between 1 and 5 employees. Texas allows business owners to opt out of workers' compensation, but employers may still be held liable for uninsured claims and employee injuries. Note: penalties for not having workers' comp insurance can happen. So business owners that do not carry workman's compensation when it is required by law often face stiff fines and penalties by the state. They may also be held liable for replacing employees' lost wages and paying medical expenses for workplace injuries. Failing to provide workers' compensation is a criminal offense in most states. Fines range from $1,000 to over $100,000, depending on the state and circumstances. An owner may also serve up to 7 years in jail for failure to comply with state laws. Who pays for workers' compensation claims? As written on our slide, the insurance company will pay for all the costs for all claims unless the policy specifically lists a deductible. Most policies are first dollar cost, which means deductibles do not apply. There are no limits to the amount of money an insurance company may have to pay for medical costs and rehabilitation. Wage-related payments are capped around 66% of the employee's average wages. Each state has payment schedules associated with long-term disabilities and death benefits. Thank you so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed learning about workers' compensation and have a great day.